Good evening, and the Marussia driver Jules Bianchi has died following his head injuries sustained at the Japanese Grand Prix last October, and he went off after aquaplaning because it had been raining during the day, and he went off and hit a recovery vehicle that was tending to the salver of Adrian Sutil, which went off the lap before. This left him with severe head injuries, and he was in a coma for 9 months until yesterday. He was pronounced dead, and we're coming up to the corner right now where he went off. I mean, it's a very fast uphill corner, and when it's particularly even more tricky when it's raining, as it was raining at the time, and the Marussia team and Jules' family are obviously devastated, and it's a hammer blow for the Marussia team because, or Mana Marussia as it is now, because they're only just rebuilding the team after they thought they lost the team due to administration issues towards the end of last year. They just rebuilt the team and get racing again, and then you get hit with the news like this. I mean, words of mine cannot imagine what they must be going through and feeling emotionally. And the F1 fraternity has been sending in their tributes to Jules, and it's clearly and he was the first driver to die as a result of head injuries since Ayrton Senna in the San Marino Grand Prix 21 years ago. And obviously nobody likes it when a driver dies, and no matter who it is or how old or young, it's going to come as a shock. But it's only when things like this happen that we have to remind ourselves that this is Formula One, and it always will be a dangerous sport. Motor racing will never ever be 100% safe, but measures have been taken in the last 20 years to make the cars safer, but it always will be a dangerous sport. And drivers get into their cars every race they take part in, knowing what the risks are and knowing that it may happen to them, but they hope it won't happen to them. And at the Japanese Grand Prix, such a horrific crash, it did happen. Jules Bianchi, after the incident, was moved to, for quite a while he was in the hospital in Japan, up to a month or two after his accident, and then he was moved to a hospital in Nice, near where he lived, so that he could, we hoped, continue his recovery. But yesterday he died, aged 25 years old. And much of his life was spent behind the wheel of a racing car. And he first started racing at the age of 3.5. And he had a bright future ahead of him. and at the time it was affecting a Marussia team that was that saw a loss of another driver a couple of years or so before. Maria Di Violta died in testing after crashing before and losing her eye. Obviously she crashed and lost her eye, and then everybody was saying what a brilliant job she did to get back driving again, and then she had a crash that was fatal. And she was Jules Bianchi was the first Marussia driver to have an accident since. Obviously it's not a nice place to be, the F1 fraternity at the moment, but, and I dare say they'll be talking about this, about the tragedy and Jules Bianchi and safety, and during next weekend's Hungarian Grand Prix coverage. Much earlier on in that year, the Marussia team were celebrating because Jules Bianchi got their first ever World Championship points with a really strong drive, coming home in 9th place, and this is where he's got those points at Monaco, and the jubilation within such a little team is just unbelievable, because they've been in F1 a few years and not got close to points, and yet to get those points was so valuable to the team. And Jules had only joined the team the year before, so it was a really high moment. And tragically, they proved to be the only points that Jules would ever score, and it was all decided by a really brave overtaking move that Jules put into this corner, which guaranteed him that point. Well, he was running 8th, but he got a 5-second penalty, which still left him in the points in 9th place, and the whole F1, the whole F1 world, was really pleased because Jules was driving really well, drove really well to get those points. But he started in the mid-table, but with a good drive he got the points, and the tragic part of his passing is the fact that he was only 25. And that he would have gone on to great things and been in a top car, possibly would have been looking at a drive in the Ferrari, because he was part of the Ferrari Young Driver programme, and he may even have got a drive in Kimi Raikkonen's place next year, because Raikkonen's future is not exactly guaranteed at Ferrari next year, so we could well have been saying next year Jules Bianchi, Ferrari driver, but tragically that will never happen. And what can one say apart from what one has already said, that he was a promising driver, a nice bloke off the track, and he's been cruelly taken away. and that means now that there's no there's one less French driver on the grid. You got Romain Grosjean, he's French, and I think that's it, if my memory serves me correctly. And at one point there used to be lots of French drivers on the grid. Now it seems to be dwindling.